All right. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the KYCA PM show. It's Tuesday, and that means it could be anything today, folks. Well, today it's me. Not just anything or just anyone. Okay, we got a lot going on today. I want to thank you for joining us. 928-541-1016 if you want to weigh in. Next week, next Tuesday, mark your calendars, hide the women and children. It is the panel of all knowledge next week with Malcolm Barrett Jr., Phil King, Tom Riley, and Bob Recker. All going to be on the stage here to discuss the latest and greatest of what's going on. Mark your calendar. 1 week from today, you can watch it, you can listen to it. I can just feel it coming. It's just going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Great show on the way. And, of course, I want to thank everybody for being on. Don't forget, also, tune into KNOT. We've got baseball tomorrow night. 3:30 is the start time. Toronto and Boston on the run for the playoffs. The home of the World Series on KNOT, the nifty 1450 AM. All right. But right now we're on the mighty 1490. Did you know that? We're right next to each other. And with me today and across the table is the honorary member of the panel of all knowledge. And that would be former Speaker of the House of the state of Arizona, Andy Tobin. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me. It's good to be home.
Love having you in.
Yeah.
To comment on what's going on because
busy times.
I swear, especially since Trump got in, every time you turn around, every few weeks or a month, everything's different and it's just getting better.
God. Oh my God! I was listening to him today.
Mm-hmm.
They turned the elevator off or the escalator off on him at the UN. Right?
Yeah.
They guess they said they were going to, so they did. I guess they don't like him very much.
When you stand up in front of a whole bunch of people and say, you all need to
shape
up.
Right. Yeah. And then turning the teleprompter off on him is a mistake. I mean, at the end of the day, he'll just talk longer. So I don't know.
When he goes off script, you've got a problem.
Oh, my gosh. You got to give it to him. Huh?
Well, apparently he did kind of tear into the UK a little bit. And
rightfully so.
And also there was a discussion. I thought this was very interesting. He was at a meeting with French President Macron this afternoon.
Yeah.
And he commented on the fact that he really thought that his past relationship with Vladimir Putin would mean something in the peace talks and in what's going on with the war. And apparently he admitted it meant nothing.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, I don't know if anybody's relationship with Putin has ever meant anything. You know, at the end of the day, this is a dictator. This is a guy who's more important to him that he stays in power than anything else. You know, the fact that he's got weapons that are devastating is the only reason he's still in power, or they'd have moved him out long ago. Now they're buzzing around, Poland, in the Balkans, trying to stir up more, get him attention. I think this is one of those people that just is desperate for that kind of attention, almost in any way, shape, or form. And I think the president is trying to squeeze this economy harder and harder on him because the fewer people that stand up and appreciate him the better.
Yeah.
And right now we got India still buying oil from him. Of course, China is going to participate in that as well. India kind of bothers me that that shouldn't be happening. Everyone should be on the same side in this process. Still a lot of killing going on there. I know it must really bother the president. It was one of his goals to have put that thing to bed long ago.
Well, that was one of the things he mentioned today. As he said, people are still dying by the thousands every week, and nobody's moving on anything.
Right. Well, you got who? I don't know if I'm supposed to be surprised in this world or not, but we got Australia jumping on board with the recognition of the Palestinians, along with England, along with France. I mean, what is wrong with these people? It's it's out of control. Can you release the hostages so everything can stop?
Yeah.
I mean, that would make some sense to me. So the president called them all out. I mean, rightfully so. We got a president that's going to stand up and call these folks out for what they did and continue to do. We're not even sure how many are still alive in there right now. So,
and that's one thing I kind of wanted to hit very quickly because we are approaching the second anniversary, believe it or not, of the October 7th attacks, and it's just amazing to me, really, that we still have hostages over there. I believe, or do we have any Americans still there?
That's a good question. I think we had one American that was left last time, and he got out, and I'm not sure that there are any left at this point, Americans. But the answer is these are citizens who've been taken from their homes, from their homeland who are out enjoying a concert somewhere, and now we're what are we, 90 days from Christmas? 2 years later, we still have this thing is still going on, and you're still having people sitting there saying, hey, let's have a Palestinian state. Well, they were offered a Palestinian state, by the way, with a piece of Jerusalem in it, and it wasn't that long ago, and they turned this all down. So, I mean, here we are. I mean, their only function is to destroy Israel, certainly destroy their citizens, and somehow or another we think that's worthy of to recognize them with a country of their own and recognition from major powers, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So I'm glad the president's calling them out at the UN. I wish. I don't want to say we should get out of the UN, mostly because we have veto power on, which is important on the I forget the name of that committee, the Security Council. The Security Council. Yeah. So I don't think we can walk away from that. But I'm from New York City, and I really get tired of those folks showing up and not having to pay their parking tickets and yet parking all over the place. But that's another story for another day.
London or Paris looks pretty good now.
My gosh, I swear.
For our new UN headquarters. Yeah. But everybody's happy the U.S. is taking it, I'm sure. Yeah. Nobody really wants it.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure, too.
Well, that's just one of those things of being the superpower, I suppose. Right. And we are becoming more of a superpower. Your take, I mean, let's see, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. We're 8 months in.
Right.
8 months. We're 8 months in to the Trump administration.
Right.
Are we where you thought we would be on January 20th?
I got to say, first off, I'm giving the president an A right here. It's almost October. There's a lot of things that are still missing here in the pipeline, but you cannot deny the speed that he had come out in this administration. Yep. How fast these things move, how quick that border was closed. I mean, that in of itself, no matter how you look at budget expenditures and whatnot, that in of itself is going to save us on resources. And then he continued to make the economy his goal. And listen, I'm not a big fan of tariffs and all that other stuff as well. But there's a lot of all tariffs are not the same. Right. They all are different. They all come with different pieces that impact one country versus another. We talked about the steel thing today. He's trying to get our steel industry back up. I don't believe it's we should be as a country even being part of those decisions in the private economy and a private capitalist country. However, you have to start thinking, what he has done to bring some of those resources back, to bring some of those manufacturing things back. They just are going to take time, right? I mean, you just can't turn around and build a steel mill overnight and get this thing back up after decades of shipping these jobs away. So it is going to take some time for that. We're going to have there's going to be some stress. We're seeing it now in the housing market, I think if we take care of some of the permitting reform, that will help our housing market and save some of those costs there. But clearly, we still have a lot of these imports that go to our housing, and there's tariffs on them. Yeah, that's part of it. So that is adding that stress on there. I would really have loved to see, and I think the generation that's taking it in the shorts right now is our kids. Yeah. I mean, right now, the affordability of a home, the affordability of a car, for heaven's sake, $70,000 for a car. I know we're fighting here over an Amazon, that all of a sudden nobody wants an Amazon to be built in Prescott Valley. Yeah. Just an extension. I mean, so our kids can't afford a house. They can barely afford health care. They can barely afford daycare. Now the car costs, the insurance costs, they've got university loans from their degrees that are out of control. And you know what? It's not even enough to give them an Amazon job. Yeah. Come on, folks. There's our plate was set by our parents and the world's greatest generation. They didn't stick us with $38 trillion worth of debt. And that's where I think the president is trying to be ahead of this curve, trying to set the pace for job growth in an America that we remember for our children. Because right now, to them, they don't think it's available. And they might be right, at these prices for a house. How are they supposed to afford all that?
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid to say it. I just don't see very much going down. I know the housing market can go down, but we don't really want that to happen.
Well, you got a lot of – listen, we're going to have to take some punches in the gut here along the way. we've built our estates, we've built our homes. We got listen. Zillow says my house is worth $1 million. I'm going to tell you, there's no way that house is worth $1 million. That is a fictitious economy. It's just the way it goes. Prices are up. I get it. Buy and sell, demand and all that. But the truth of the matter is my first house didn't cost anywhere near that.
Right.
And my second house didn't cost any more than that. My third, I'm on my fourth or fifth house, whatever. I'll have to check with Jen to see how many houses I'm in. But the truth is that this market is way overstated. The market's probably way overstated. But we have now built an economy for decades on the back of our children's debt.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at this, when we're all done bitching and squawking about the economy and who's building what and what hotel's going up on Whiskey Row that we don't want to have, or you pick the place. There's a lot of not in my backyard type of stuff going on out there, and I just share with you that people before us built roads. People before us built pathways to get in and out of this community. We need to do more of that. We need to probably build some more arterials so we're taking some of that pressure off these infrastructures. But who do they think's coming to wait the tables? I was at a restaurant with my wife and I actually went to a movie. We went out to a restaurant not far off of Highway 69, and we walked in. I don't think there was like 6 people waiting ahead of us, but there were plenty of tables. They didn't have enough staff to tell us that we wouldn't be 30 more minutes. This is coming. These kids they're not coming in here for this kind of money. I'm worried about our hospitals. I'm worried about our job markets here. So it's not enough to say, well, we're building some apartments or we're making little skinny houses or something. Back in our day, hey, guess what? We had a little bit of compaction here. Maybe we had a fourplex. Maybe had condos or something. Something so these young folks coming out of school can get married or not, but afford to be able to make a payment on something. And I think that's what this president is trying to do. I actually, shot a Twitter out the other day. We should have a program like similar to the VA that says, hey, what about for first-time home buyers? Let's give them a cut in the interest rate, because you watch what happens. The interest rate will come down, just like it just recently did. It'll come down again, and a lot of us who have these homes will refinance if we're going to make out better.
Right.
Other investors will say maybe this is the time to buy, and they'll jump in again, or they'll refinance their debt. But is 1 or 2% now going to help? Well, 1 or 2%, 2% might help a lot, but is 0.5%? That's not going to make much in the difference for a kid with a family of 2 kids and a college bill to pay their degree off and their car insurance and all this other stuff if they can even get it. Yeah. So we have loaded these kids up with a really harrowing experience. The seniors, those folks who have means, should be opening that door. And instead of having plus 55, communities show up, how about we have under 55? How about we switch this around a little? Let's give these young folks a chance to get into housing and get into a decent automobile and be able to send their kids on to school. So, but I think this is what the president's trying to do. He's trying to get a market so that these workers, because he knows as he's putting these tariffs out there and he's going into these industries, he's creating these jobs, he's wanting these jobs. Somebody's got to fill these jobs. He wants these kids to get in there and fill them, but they've got to be in a place where they can have the American dream. He just wants them to have the American dream, as do I.
Yep.
And some of them can't do that today.
All right. We're going to take a break.
Yeah.
We'll pontificate more in a few minutes.
Great.
We got plenty of stuff to talk about.
Right on.
If you've got a question for the former Speaker of the House, Andy Tobin, 928-541-1016. Back after this. And we're back here on the KYCA PM show. Jason Zinzilieta, along with former Speaker of the House, Andy Tobin. Andy, always a pleasure to have you in.
It's great to be here.
Because there's enough to pontificate about.
Oh, at least. And I'm thinking, well, the D-backs are playing tonight. I mean, here's a perfect scenario. They get rid of some of their top players because they don't think they're going to get through the year and get to the playoffs. And here they are. They're sitting here with, 7 games left to go. And for heaven's sakes, they may make it to the wild card.
Yep.
Go figure. I think sometimes you put these young kids in there and just let them play. I mean, they don't have the multi-trillion-dollar budget that other teams have. I'm a Yankee fan, so I know what those budgets are. But wouldn't that be a lot of fun if these kids got themselves into a playoff spot after trading away some of their players for the stretch? So
that would be
anyway,
something.
It should be a lot of fun to watch.
We're going to see how it goes there. So,
right.
All right, Charlie Kirk's memorial.
Yeah, man.
That was an amazing thing over the weekend.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. And as they say, he's passed into the ages now. We have buried him. We have had the memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And his legacy, according to Michael Berry last night on his show, he said the last number he got from somebody at TPUSA was, well, let me preface this. Charlie had developed about a little over 2,000 affiliates at schools across the country. His life goal was 20,000 before he retired.
My Lord.
As of last night, 10 days after the assassination, there have been requests for 62,000 new affiliates of TPUSA across the country.
My Lord.
And so you wonder, I don't think we've ever really seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Tea Party. It wasn't Trump #1. It wasn't Trump #2. This is different.
Well, I agree with you. I was national president of the JCs, right? In the 1980s, that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. They were the largest young person's organization in the world.
Right.
It founded. I was the 69th president. In 1988, I was in the Bush White House. I was in the Reagan White House. I worked with the president. Did a lot of things nationwide. I was on the Jerry Lewis telethon. All these things, and we were the biggest. 250,000 members, less than 10,000 chapters. I heard they got 40,000 calls for new chapters just after his assassination.
Right.
40,000. So to put that in perspective, and I hope one day they would come back, the once incredible organization of charity and humanity and faith in God, that's what it was all about. Yep. Just like Charlie, a lot of incredible similarities to it, was that large and does not even compare to where Turning Point has taken this with Charlie. It was a very difficult weekend. I think for a lot of people, I think a lot of folks look at this and say, okay, listen, we just had, I was talking to Representative Fang Wen just the other day. We just had 4 soldiers in a helicopter that went down, I think, as you recall. Yep. And I mean, these are 25, 23, 33, 31. I'm just saying, here's Charlie, that what you can't take away from him is this guy's brilliance, his quickness, his faith, and his determination. But you believed it when Charlie said it.
Yeah.
You really did. I mean, I watched some of his debates, and he was pretty. But and I think we've talked about this in the past. I get so tired of listening to politicians, especially, but other leaders and business people. There's no need to. You can still be gentlemen and gentle ladies without using the F-bomb or other curse words in your action.
Right.
Never did I hear any of that come out of his mouth. But no. I see it on Twitter from some of the Congress people, doing that stuff, and I'm just like, I've never said that in front of my mother even today.
Well, exactly.
For heaven's sake. So look at what he did bring. He brought a sense of hey, wait a second, we can talk to each other.
Yeah.
And we don't have to agree. But I'm gonna listen to you, and I'm gonna respect you, and I think that is just unbelievable. You were sharing with me about South Korea.
Yeah,
I mean, how many people did they have come out from?
20,000, something like that.
This is South Korea.
Yeah, this also happened in Australia,
right?
Around the world. Right. Elon Musk spoke in London, where they were having a big rally
Right.
that at the same time for their own problems in terms of freedom of speech.
Right.
Elon Musk spoke at that. There were 100,000 people on that bridge.
Well, you listen, when you hear the Secretary of State, and I've met Secretary Rubio. We were together on a campaign before ourselves, and I just always thought he was one of the top guns out there. But I'm going to tell you, after his speech, the blend that he had brought of God and faith, and really what our Constitution says, and that we are inalienable. We have inalienable rights. Like somehow or another, that simplest concept that you and I grew up with seems to have been lost on this generation. That either we didn't teach it to them, we didn't explain it to them. But Charlie was so quick, and I think people, when they heard it, were like, it was like for the first time.
Yes.
Where you and I are used to, maybe we just got complacent in what our nation is supposed to be. But our government didn't give us these rights.
That's right.
They're ours. No other nation in the world can claim that. And Charlie went out and spoke to that,
Yes.
and inspired young people to aspire to make a greater nation. So, from my perspective, sad day to lose anybody with that kind of talent. Certainly, that kind of youth. Certainly, a young father, and his wife is. You got to hand it to her. To get up and forgive your husband's assassin.
Yep.
I really can't quite tell you that that's ever happened in the history books. But I mean, what an incredible moment that was. I watched most of it, but I will share that that's just one incredible family. We're very lucky to have had them. I think the sin would be if we didn't take what he taught and make sure it gets spread around and continue its effort. And the first thing these folks should be doing, especially these young people, is take those inalienable rights and go register to vote. And go engage.
And it's been an interesting time on that, too. I can tell you very quickly.
Yeah.
I saw a story concerning Pennsylvania voting numbers, which registration numbers, which they track on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Since Charlie's assassination, 1,700 Democrats have re-registered as Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania.
Right.
And they've had 3,000 new Republicans created in Pennsylvania, and that's one state.
Right.
And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out on politics and religion, for that matter. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here on KYCA. Back after the bottom of the hour break with Andy Tobin right after this. Okay, we're back here on the KYCA PM show, 928-541-1016. I'm sorry, Andy and I talk off camera too, so I mean we got so much to talk about. We're trying to squeeze it into
you
an
guys
hour.
should have heard what we were just talking about.
And of course, we're not going to say anything. So
Right.
Heck with that. All right, sorry to move off of Charlie. We've heard a lot about him over the last 11, 12 days. He will be missed, and I want a final take real quick.
Yeah.
And I know we've never seen anything like this.
Right.
How impactful is this going to be long term?
Yeah.
And I'm talking not just the presidential race possibly in 2028, but are we going to see an impact culturally and politically beyond that?
Yeah, I think we're right in the middle of it. I think I would say that in the 60s, the Vietnam era, this youth movement that spoke up and talked about pushing back and peace, and the Martin Luther King. Don't there seem like there's some similarities here with RFK, with JFK, with Martin Luther King, with who was more about peace and holding hands, and Dr. King. It just seems to me that there's some similarities here, and he spoke of God as well. I mean, so I think what you've got, you have a young generation who has not had a president. Yeah. You think about it. I'm glad Donald Trump is in there now. He's over 80. His predecessor was over 80.
Yep.
For heaven's sakes, I don't think maybe we should have listen, I know the Pope can be over 80, but even the previous two popes ago, he resigned. So at the end of the day, I think this generation it's their turn. And like we were talking about in the beginning of your conversation, they have grown up. They have seen this. They have wallowed through this. They see the mess that's ahead of them. But they see, in what Charlie saw, this great, should I say, city on the hill, and put the Reagan bill in here. But he was our general. That's who I got to spend time with. Yeah. So I mean, there's an aspiration about our nation again that I think you could attribute to a lot of what Charlie was, and what the president has been trying to do, and with his younger cabinet has been trying to do. I think there's a comeback in the midst, and I think we're lucky enough to be alive to see another one, because the way the first one turned out, I don't think it finished very well, leaving our kids with all this debt. But yes, I think this is generational. I do not think that these young people of today, these between the 15 and 45, 55, whatever, I don't think they will all be able to say where they were. They'll all be able to say they know him. They all be able to say that they knew what he spoke about. Yeah. And it was really some good stuff. Yep. So God bless you, Charlie. I mean, it was, but here we go.
We're going to see what happens.
The nation continues.
Literally, we're at the first days of a new era.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
We're going to see how that goes. Let's switch to Arizona politics.
Oh my gosh, not that again. Here we go.
No, not that.
I had, for the listeners, I know that I've talked about my daughter Megan had a little baby girl, Charlotte Elizabeth.
Congratulations!
Just last week, we were so excited. 7 pounds 8 ounces. Her brother Bryce and Quinn are just happy to hold her, and we're so lucky to have her. So I think my message is to this future is very bright. Yes, about our youth. What other nation? Not only listen, we got problems, but what other nation in the world will allow them to grow up free?
Not many now.
And there you go. So now the old adage is, you have your republic. Yeah. You got to keep it.
That's
so
right.
Everybody's got to fight for it. So let's help them.
Absolutely.
So here comes Arizona, though, right?
Here comes Arizona. Yeah. Well, I thought I'd try and sneak it in before the break, but I'll tell you what. Let's just take it. I'll tell you what. We will go to after the break. We will concentrate on Arizona, and if you really want to delve down into Prescott, you're welcome to.
Oh, okay.
But speaking of free speech and everything, we can see how quickly it left. Yeah. When you're looking at the UK, France, NATO, the European Union in general, but UK in particular.
Oh my God, I'd be afraid to get thrown into jail for something I might have retweeted here in the United States.
And I think to me it's an object lesson of what could have happened after last November.
Right.
I had a feeling we were in that direction.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And those are the history points we will find out. Yeah. Maybe well after we're gone, but what were the key factors that made those things change?
I think, to me personally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're seeing a point, especially when it comes to the UK, of have we gone too far? Can we get it
Yes.
back?
So the answer is yes. It's amazingly enough, there aren't enough Charlies out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that this young man was able. And I don't mean to keep going back to him. I know we left there, but think about it. They're literally are parading and marching in streets because of this American who was just assassinated a week ago, where I'm not so sure they would have been doing that like they are right now. So you can see that impact is happening. I think they're starting to see, their nationalism, their culture is, and it should be, as important to any country as it is to ours. Right. And I think that for a long time, I'm first generation Irish, or second generation. My dad, all my grandparents were born in Ireland. So I mean, I look and go, you guys are crazy. I don't even want to go back there. I mean, they got them in South Africa. They were on with the Palestinians. I go, what is wrong with you people? So I think you're starting to even see it there. You're starting to see folks saying, okay, enough of this is enough. We have got to find our way out of terrorism and into a great economy and a great way to have people have a quality of life. And right now in a lot of Europe, that's not going on. So
it's going to be interesting to see how this comes out at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know where this is going at all.
Well, that's very true. So
Yeah.
I feel better having the president we have in there right now, defending us and
keeping our fingers crossed for J.D. Vance in 3 years.
There you go. That's going to be an interesting race, right? I mean, you can go through. Now you talk about who's got the bench.
Yeah.
They may have enough pinch hitters to jump into that fight all along the way. We're only 9 months into it. I think I've seen so much in politics over my years. You just never, I ended up being speaker because the guy quit. I mean, a lot of people think, oh yeah, Tobin became speaker, what a great guy, and all that. The answer was the speaker quit, and I got to spend 4 years in the speaker's office. But it was more difficult than that, obviously. But the point is that every political cycle is a new history book, and what the things that motivate the voters to go to the polls and or also don't, or can be really well traced. And so it's gonna be interesting. I think when we get into 2026, you're going to be looking at whether the incredible surgence of this Trumpism that has occurred is sustainable as an economy. What does it look like in May of 2026? Is the job market going? Are we safer? Is the budget getting controlled? Are people able to afford housing? Is life getting better for everybody? That's what they're looking at. And if that answer is no, I think Republicans are going to have a hard time. It's hard to be patient out there. You can't fix a 30-year problem of $37 trillion in debt overnight. I get it. But this guy's gonna start that movement, and you're gonna see it here in the next few days or weeks here with the new budget coming along. See how many folks actually jump on that new budget proposal, or does government get shut down?
And everything you say could be two different directions. I tell you, you just don't know.
Right.
All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to take our next break here on KYCA. Right. I know we're running a little late. That's okay. I don't like to interrupt you.
Oh,
Andy.
my gosh, yeah, please do.
All right, more interruptions coming your way right after this.
Great.
All right, we're back here on the KYCA PM show. Andy Tobin in the house. Jason Zinzilieta with you, 928-541-1016. I'm going to say it. Arizona politics.
Here we go. That's great. Well, it's better than New York City politics. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that mayor's race.
My gosh.
Dammy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like 20 points ahead of Cuomo, who's like 20 points ahead of Mayor Adams.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 40-point spread here, and I'm like, what is going on in that crazy town?
They're going to elect a socialist. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they are.
Well, speaking of which, here's Arizona. No, I'm sorry. I know that the Republicans are starting to coalesce. We've got Andy Biggs. We've got Karen Taylor Robeson.
Right.
And who else?
Well, you may have David Schweikert getting that race if it's. I mean, that he's still toying around with that. There's always, it's not early, but it's not too late.
Right.
So there's a lot of potential for that to occur. Happened last time too.
We have an interesting dynamic. It's something I didn't think about until just a few weeks ago. I was talking to Karen Fan. I was talking to a few other people at a function, and the dynamic that I never really thought about that's coming along is, how big of a role does the lieutenant governor play in terms of political power, in terms of deal making?
Right.
I'm not necessarily saying it's the most important office out there, but it makes a difference.
It's interesting. So remember, I held the title. I was the head of the Department of Administration.
Right.
That is the function of the lieutenant governor.
Okay.
That's what they passed. So I didn't like it. I thought, if you're going to do that, get rid of the Secretary of State, give the Lieutenant Governor, the Department of Administration, and also the Secretary of State's office. So I didn't want to grow government. I just spent 15 years of my life shrinking it. So I was never a fan of that. But that is going to be an interesting dynamic, right? Now you're going to have somebody coming on as a ticket. To believe for a minute that that's not a political move is you're just too ignorant in politics. That is an absolute political move. So, and they'll start be toying with names along the way, because it's like a vice president. If you're more over to the right, you probably want to bring somebody that's more in the center to kind of get your base moving with you. Right, this is kind of commonplace. So that it will be a game changer on potentially in primaries, where an Andy Biggs could pick somebody who's more center than where Andy is lying. So it'll show he's broadening his horizons as a gubernatorial candidate. Maybe the same is true with Karen. Maybe Karen, who's considered mostly to the right of center and more the business conservative that's out there. I think pulling somebody and she's already been reaching out to the Freedom Caucus side of the equation, where she can get a good partner too. So those things are going to be impactful as candidates go, but it still is going to boil down to the popularity of the party, where they are come May and June. Remember, this primary kicks off, everybody. It's only 10 months.
Yeah.
And we'll know who the primary winners are, who's going to go up against Mrs. Hobbs, who's going to go up against an attorney general, who's going to go up against the Secretary of State. We're going to know all those answers here in a very short period of time, and then you have that 90-day race. But it is still about every election that comes through, it is always going to be about the economy. What's your breath? What's it looking like for me and my family? And it's remember we used to call it at the dinner table.
Oh yeah.
Those conversations, maybe back to Charlie, I think they get to be started again, where the husband and the wife and the kids are at the dinner table talking about the things that Charlie talked about today. What's going on in Ukraine? What's going on over here?
Well, for the first time, we're re-engaged in politics at a family level, and it is not only that, but a part of your church experience as well.
Should be. I think all of those things are they're part of who Americans are.
Yep, that's part of the thing.
And we have a responsibility to be involved.
Yeah,
we have a responsibility to have that move ahead.
But one thing with the lieutenant governor, we will never have another situation where we had with Evan Meekum as a Republican was removed, and we had Democrat Rose Mofford, who never wanted to be governor.
No,
and was,
poor Rose.
and was allowed to run for Secretary of State to finish out 50 years in government, and she becomes governor. And she wasn't bad. She was Rose. She was great.
She was wonderful. I remember she was a lovely lady. She used to come to the Phoenix JC's rodeo all the time to come out and just show her support in the community. You're right. This is a lady that didn't want to get in the big fight over this guy. She a good Democrat, made a lot of friends in the Republican Party.
Yep. She was something, that's for sure.
Agreed.
All right. I'll tell you what, we got to take our last break because we've been talking just too much.
Okay.
And so last segment with Andy Tobin here on KYCA.
Right.
We'll take a break and back after this. It's amazing what you can learn during the breaks here on KYCA. Used to be that I would run tapes and I'd call it blackmail material, but actually, with Andy Tobin in the house, I learned a whole lot more than ever before. I just want to go back to Charlie.
Yeah.
There were rumors running around last year that Charlie was going to make a run for governor.
Yeah.
And apparently that did not happen.
Yeah.
He threw his support, I think, behind Andy Biggs at the end.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It would have been an interesting race.
Yeah.
And I think he understood he was too young at the time. And,
yeah.
31.
I'm not. And listen, I was very young when I was national president of the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce. Very young, but the answer was still, it wasn't like Charlie was a born leader.
Right.
I just think we would have lost more of Charlie's time on the ninth floor managing a business called the state capitol than having clearly his mission was to be out there and whether under a tent with a microphone 24/7 if he could be. Where could you have had his better bio, I think.
So this brings out an interesting point where it comes to Arizona politics.
Yeah.
Turning Point makes such a big difference in Arizona. We know this.
Yeah.
We know that this is the headquarters.
Right.
How much of an impact do you think Turning Point is going to make now and the mere existence of everything that's happened on Arizona politics in particular? Do you think they're going to make a difference that might have been different than what we were expecting?
Yeah, I do, and I hope what that difference is that people start looking at, hey, there's a new generation signing up to vote, and we want to hear. Listen, everybody's not going to agree with everything Charlie said. My wife and I don't agree on everything. Your wife, right? That's not the way. So the idea is the engagement. That what was so grand about Charlie. It was the engagement, where folks that would come out and they cared enough to say, hey, this is how I feel. I think that's the inspiration. I do. I think folks who were thinking, and I know a lot of them who have never even voted in their 30s, and they're what's the point?
Yeah.
Maybe they look at this as their opportunity to say, you know what? If that guy could give his life to, traveling around and talking to people about our nation, the smallest of things I could do is maybe engage a little bit, go register to vote, what did he talk about? Setting good examples for your children. Yep. Being a good man or a good woman for your family, those things. And I think, yes, there's not a question in my mind that is going to be impactful, and it's going to be impactful for generations to come.
Okay, let's hone down into the legislature.
Yeah.
There is a slight Republican lead, which gained in the last election.
Right.
Do you see that continuing? Do you see them holding both houses again?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's a tight. They're tight margins. They've been tighter. Jason, listen, when I first went down there, I was the Republicans had a 3-member advantage.
Okay.
That's 2006. So that's 20 years ago, and 3 is, listen, 1 is crazy, right? They only had 1, but 3 was, so it is not so unusual for these things to be, more balanced than that. I think, what the Republicans need to do is continue to press their mission and what it is about, and then teach about what the Constitution is and what they're standing for, because that middle that's out there, that 34.4% or whatever it was this morning of the independent voter who's out there, those people will matter. Not as many of them will go vote, but the idea is that these are people who want to hear what you have to say. So go get them. I'd love to campaign. I would do it again tomorrow if my wife would let me. I mean, it is a great aphrodisiac to get to meet people, but it is also irresponsible at this point in our nation's history and this point in our future for us not to be voting and not to engage. And I think that was part of what we were hearing from Turning Point and from the president and everything. Hey, it's just not acceptable anymore. Right. Could you imagine if it would be, not a nuance, but like an in thing to do for everybody? Are you voting today? I mean, it's not like we used to go to Murphy's and have a beer and say, hey, did you register? Yeah. Maybe that would be a good idea before you go have a beer with your buddy. Say, are you a registered voter? Because you're going to have to, because there's a lot of things we have to fix out here. And if you're not going to be registered, you're not doing your part. And that, that's what Americana is. You're supposed to do your part. You don't have to be in Congress for 20, 30 years either. Don't get me started on term limits, but everybody should take a turn. Everybody should take their turn and serve. And I think that would be a good comeback for us.
You keep pointing to the economy and saying that April, May, June, wherever the economy is, that may be how the election turns out for Arizona and for the other states that are running governors and legislatures and things like that during the off year.
Certainly Congress. Yeah,
and the congressional races.
Right.
I think we don't have a Senate race this year. This is the first time in years we don't have a Senate race.
Today there's a race today in Arizona, Congressional District 7. Mrs. Grijalva is running for her dad's seat. This is the final day. It's not well contested. It's a heavily Democrat district, but the races begin after today. Right. Because this is the last 2025 race. So yes, it's going to be formidable. Everybody's up, not our county supervisors, but all the legislature is up, all the congressional seats, no Senate seat, right? This is our skip.
Yeah, this is our skip year. Yeah,
but this is going to set the pace for 28, right? This is going to make a decision, and that's why it's so critical that Trump continue to outreach and continue to do what and that our listeners continue to be a part of the process, because what happens in 26 is going to direct whether is President Trump going to be a lame duck after November of 26. And by that I mean, does he lose Congress?
Right.
And because that will do it, right? All of a sudden you'll be on defense now. So the further the mission will then change. It will then be, okay, what can we hang on to? What can we push back on, because we're not going to pass anything else.
60 seconds left. Very quickly, what is it going to take for a Republican to beat Hobbs?
So, listen, the administration's got major problems,
okay.
and I think everybody would also agree that they were quite surprised that they won in a race or that would have been a much more complicated Democrat primary than what it was.
Right.
So I think that the administration recognizes they've got a problem, and their party is a problem. Their party doesn't have a focus on where they are, who they are at this point. So right now, I think the answer is that the Democrats are in trouble. The Republicans, who I've been a lifelong member of course, the Republicans are going to be in trouble if they want to be. You want to get in a big fight and not come together again? That's on us. Yeah. And you want to open that door up, or do you want to find a pathway to well govern? And those are some of the pieces that we need to make sure are part of these platforms. We need folks who are running for office who know how to well govern in a conservative manner that picks up the trash and keeps us safe. And that's what government's supposed to do. We can do the rest. We'll raise our kids. We'll raise our families.
That's the last word, Andy.
All
Thank
right.
you very much for coming in today.
It's my pleasure. Always good to be here.
Really wanted you here to kind of comment on what's been happening the last
Yeah.
few weeks, and we're looking forward to seeing what's going to happen going forward. So,
Right.
all right.
Well, very nice seeing you.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you all for tuning in. Of course, this is going to be on the archives. You can tune in anytime and parse it down if you'd like. Otherwise, we'll see you again next week. The panel of all knowledge, 1 week from today.